I think we have a quorum, so why don't we start and then also get the names of all the guests. Okay, so Jay, if you would call the roll, please.
Yes. Commissioner Pavot,
That's okay.
Commissioner Merrigan,
Here.
Vice Chair Merrigan, Commissioner Pritchard,
Here.
Commissioner Yanni,
He's here, but we just lost him.
he's-
He's just probably muted.
Commissioner Gladstone,
Present.
Commissioner Murray. No Commissioner Murray.
Okay.
We have quorum. Madam Chair.
Okay, great, thank you. I would like a motion, please, to accept the agenda.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes,
I was just wondering under item H, review of projects for city council. Since we've already voted and approved items 1 through 4, is there a need to revisit these, or could we just?
it's not to revisit, it's just to go over which ones are going to city council, which ones are ready. Because
Yeah.
there are some that aren't far enough along.
Oh, okay,
So Cindy is writing the staff report and she can just tell us.
right.
But I did also want to have in one place all of the things we had approved
Mhm.
so that we could track when they do get to the
Okay.
council.
All right, I'll make a motion to accept the agenda.
I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, very good. Before the public comments section, I'd like our guests to introduce themselves if they're not part of the presentation about the AIDS Memorial. So I see Jennifer Morton.
Hi there. Let me start my video really quickly.
Oh, good.
Hi, oh, sorry, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I just found out about this meeting, so I wanted to just see what, I'm very interested in what you're doing. I follow you on Instagram. I love all the work you do. So I wanted to see what, the meeting was all about, what you're doing. I also work for Pause Magazine, and so I was particularly interested in the AIDS Memorial. So I just wanted to
Great.
tune in and see what you're doing. So keep up the
Excellent.
great work.
Thank you. All right.
Thank
And
you.
I see that Sarah Scheidman's here. And Philip, you'll be up next. Is there anyone else that's just here as a guest? There's Philip.
Hey,
Okay.
it's Patrick from Coachella Park. Hello.
Hi, Patrick. Good.
Hey, guys.
Patrick Sheehan.
And Barrett Newkirk, Palm Springs resident.
Very good. I have a blank screen next to mine. Is that, oh, okay. Okay, I will now read the public comments section for the last time. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Public Arts Commission on items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission and agenda items if the member of the public cannot be present later in the meeting at the time each item is heard by the commission. Additionally, members of the public may address the commission on each item on the listed posted agenda at the time each item is heard. Although the Public Arts Commission values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any action on items not listed on the posted agenda, and 5 minutes are assigned for each speaker. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak? Okay. Hearing none, I hope you all received the minutes earlier today. I'd like a motion to approve the minutes from May 19th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for May 19th, 2021.
In a second,
I have a minor note, which is just that I think Sarah Scheideman's name is spelled incorrectly.
we'll check that, right, Jay? Okay.
Yes, well,
May I have a vote, please, on the, was that a second also, Mara?
I'll second, yeah.
Okay, great. So all in favor,
Aye.
say aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Great. Okay, I just have a short report. I thought you might like to know that our budget was approved with the entire city budget. And even though the finance department usually simply puts in a sort of a placeholder number of $180,000 or so, it's what they expect in revenues for the next year, or for this year that we're just ending. It turns out that we already have over $300,000 in fees that have been paid in. And they expect by the end of the fiscal year, which is at the end of this month, that there will be $323,000 coming into the Arts Commission budget. Our balance, we have a lot of things that are encumbered and in process and haven't been paid yet, but when everything is paid, we should have a balance of about $135,000. So that means that you will start the year with $450,000, which is just a little bit less than we had this year. And I think we spent more than most years, but I think, accomplished an awful lot. So I'm glad to see that this, in spite of COVID and everything else, people kept building things. So they kept paying their fees and we get to use it. Okay, so this is the last major fun thing that we have on our agenda before the end of this year. And that is to take a look at and give our comments on the proposed AIDS memorial for the downtown park and give our recommendation to the city council, which will be the ones that have to approve it. This group is not asking the city to pay for this memorial, but to take it as a donation and to place it in the park. So is Dan here? Or Philip, you just get to do the whole thing?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay. So Dan Spencer is the chair of this committee that's been working on it, and Philip K. Smith is the artist. Dan, why don't you just do your presentation? And I think Jay has some slides to put up. We have some.
And I'll start off giving a little bit of background so that folks that didn't see us a year and a half ago, just before COVID, present before the Arts Commission, that I give you a little bit of background to this. 9 years ago, I gave a lecture at this Palm Springs Art Museum on World AIDS Day. And several people came up to me afterwards and said, we need to have one here, in a memorial in the desert here. A memorial is absolutely critical for our community to remember and memorialize and celebrate the lives of those we have lost. And that's what our task force has been working on. We've spent many years working on ideas and concepts, and it's only been within the last couple of years that we've really focused on a couple of key aspects. One is to have a major sculpture designated as the memorial. And adjacent to the sculpture will be a small sign that will tell what it is, but it'll also have a QR code. And that will link folks to all the stories that are local, as well as link to the National AIDS Memorial and the stories of the quilt, which are all being digitized and incorporated into that. So it's a very engaging aspect to current notion about memorial. We don't have names in stone, but we do have a big stone that we're planning on creating. And so that gives you a little bit of a background We have been talking with, before COVID, we met with city council members, David Reddy, a number of other city folks, as well as DAP and a number of people in the community, organizations, and got pounding thumbs up from everybody about this. And so we're looking forward to making this happen. A couple people that are with us today on the task force, Jeff Juraski and Todd Hover are with us. And Mike Ritchie isn't able to be here. He's on the task force, and he's actually on the board of the National AIDS Task Force, or National AIDS Memorial Commission. So very great connection there. I'm going to stop rambling at this point, but I'm going to turn it over to Philip, and he'll take you through what we're looking at doing.
Thanks, Dan. Hello, commissioners, everybody. Great to see you on Zoom. It's been a while since I was at a Palm Springs Public Art Commission meeting. It's exciting, and first time digitally. So I have a PDF presentation. It's okay for me to share my screen, or are there images and that are already up?
Yep.
Jay, can
Philip, why don't you go on and show your screen if it's easier, that way you can control.
Yeah, perfect. We did this yesterday and it sort of worked. So hold on, I'm gonna do do something here. And we're gonna try this again. It's not coming up. Okay, 1 second, guys. Let's see if this this works here. Are you all still seeing my file folders?
Yeah.
Okay, this happened yesterday, so one moment, bear with me. It doesn't seem to be popping up like it did yesterday. There we go. Okay. Everybody can see that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Just to talk a little bit about the concept behind this project, and to guide you through sort of where we're at with the visuals and what this piece is. I'll say that when Dan first talked to me about being involved in this, I was touched and honored to be involved, and I think for me the kind of process of sitting with an idea and letting that sort of unconsciously and consciously brew through the sketchbook and through thinking, it was actually a fair amount of time, but I'm interested in this project very much because it's one of these rare moments where I didn't know what to do initially, and when I came into the studio one day, I knew precisely what to do, and that's what I'm presenting to you today. Really, what came to me was that the AIDS Memorial, really needs to be about people, and that the scale of this work needs to be at the human scale. But I also wanted something that was tactile, something that is about touch. It's one of the beauties of public art is that it's out there in the open 24/7. You can't have stanchions around it. You don't want stanchions around it. And you want to invite that kind of engagement. But I wanted to really bring in ideas about the community, about the individual, but really that the work would be a literal touchstone for hope, for healing, for grief, and for unity within our community, and sort of tying into globally with the AIDS epidemic. So first, before I get into some visuals, I do just want to talk about the location. This is a plan of the downtown park. If you've driven by there recently, all of the palm trees have been planted throughout the oasis. And this X is our vision as to where this work could be located, sort of under the canopy of those palms, within the park, so that it has a bit more of a 360-degree experience, invites people on each side, but also there's a bit of a clearing in the trees there that could invite a slightly larger group of people to gather around this work for particular events, which was important to the task force. So moving into visuals, this was one of the kind of very first sketches that I did. This thought of this kind of round work, and you might see this piece behind me. which, is a Taurus 9, and I'm interested in light and shadow, but I was interested in how my ideas as an artist, what I've been dealing with in terms of the environment, in terms of light and shadow, movement of the sun, could really begin to apply itself to the ideas that I was talking about with the AIDS Memorial. So there's a sense of it being a round, smooth, fluid form. And that on, I'm going to skip ahead, to the front face of it is this kind of quilt work, if you will, of these concentric circles that are creating a dynamic surface of light and shadow that really is meant to be a metaphor for our community, for humanity, for the variety of people that have been touched by AIDS. And across the surface, you're seeing this pinwheel of line work. And that is actually like a groove that is cut across that topography. That is really a metaphor for AIDS, that it is something that has touched all of us, that crosses across all boundaries, all categories, but that also in a way is something that is bonding us and uniting us. It's also very important that there's this circle, this opening in the middle, so that there's a sense of looking past, of looking at what is in front of you, but also looking beyond. Because then on the backside, front side, let's say on the individual side, is these series of fins. The lines you're seeing is more of a kind of topographical understanding. So you understand that these fins are moving in and out, in this kind of symmetrical patterning. But this is about, let's say, metaphors about hope, about a flower, about time, about touch, about healing. But really that, by touching this, there might be a real connection to your own story. So again, now that opening is, let's say, a bridge between these two worlds, between the community aspect and the individual. I really want people to feel like they need to put their hand at that center point to be able to bridge between those two worlds. The other thing I'll go back to here is the overall form itself on the community side has a bit of an enveloping feeling, like it's curling around you, kind of reaching out, if you will. Whereas on the individual side, it's as though this artwork is pushing out towards you as the individual. So I really like that dynamic on each side. So I haven't talked too much about the materiality. The goal is that this is a limestone carved artwork. And this detail here is a kind of rough detail that begins to show a sense of that undulating light and shadow surface, about how those lines are marking across it. And really, I would say at this point, there are some final details that we're working out, which are more about surfaces and sheens, that I'd like some of these rings to be polished, some of them to be matte, some of them to be kind of a low sheen. Again, to, I think, really create more of a rich surface that is really kind of about talking about that a variety of humanity, let's say. So I'm going to go straight into a few details as well, just to do the whole talk here, and we can talk about some of these, but ultimately the dimensions are roughly, it's about 9 feet in diameter. And that width is more or less 3 feet. From an engineering standpoint, it is relatively straightforward. The stone, because of the scale of it, needs to be carved in 3 sections. And I want those sections to be seamless. That's part of the reason why we're choosing limestone, so that it's more of a homogeneous surface, so that those seams are not so visible. But there is a vertical steel post that will be anchored to a footing that will be underground, that won't be visible. And you'll notice that in the elevation, I'm showing actually a slightly earlier scheme that shows 2 support beams underneath it. What I've shifted to is a singular beam at the center that's not visible. So it appears as though the piece is just somehow balanced perfectly sitting on the ground. And the reason why I wanted that is this sense of removing the weight and the sense of weight, that there's a lightness. But although you understand that this is a very heavy piece of stone, it's somehow delicately sitting on the ground and balanced perfectly. A note about the lighting. We would like to have one, maybe two uplights on each side of the sculpture so that there is some dramatic lighting at night. From an aesthetic standpoint and ensuring that the sculpture and the lighting of it is merging with the concept of the rest of the park, I'd like to work with Rios to define the artwork via their spec for the lighting so that the aesthetics of the in-grade lighting is the same and that the quality or warmth of the light is consistent with the rest of the park. In terms of maintenance, because this is a stone piece, it essentially will just need to be dusted or washed off with a hose. It's pretty down and dirty that way. Being a public artist, there's always questions about graffiti. And there is a company called SoSafe that makes a graffiti remover that's specifically for stone. If you Google SoSafe and stone, you will find some pretty incredible results. The incredible part of it is that the remover doesn't just remove, let's say, the color of the graffiti, because quite often the challenge is that the graffiti is removed, but you can still see the marks or the words. The SoSafe is actually able to remove any shadow of the graffiti. So, that is, I think, a good protection long-term for anything that may happen, God forbid. So that's what I have, and I'm happy to answer any kind of questions or to look at a few slides if you've got specific questions for me.
Let's start with, first of all, is there anyone else from the committee that would like to add some comments to the plan for installing this or whatever? Are there any of our guests who would like to add? Otherwise, I'd like to go around and let each commissioner ask a question. Actually, Philip, it would help if you unshared, because then I could see everybody.
No problem.
Okay. Would someone like to start with either a question or a comment?
I'll kick it off if I may.
Russell. Okay.
So I first just want to say I probably don't really have that many questions, but I do want to say that I'm a huge fan of Philip's work, which I probably told you a few times at your studio or galleries, and thrilled at the prospect of the city having a Philip K. Smith piece of art in the center of downtown. I think the concept is brilliant, especially the limestone, cool to the touch generally, so it'll be soothing. I like the circular nature of it because it depicts a circle of life. The opening in the center with the rays coming out of it is the universe giving forth light. I think the concept is brilliant. And it gives me goosebumps. So kudos.
That's right. Thank you, Russell. I really appreciate that.
And the fact that you've engineered it so that we'll just appear to be sitting on the earth with no support. What can I say? It's brilliant.
I'd like to mention a question that I asked Dan the other day about this, that this will be sitting on solid ground. If you look at the plans, it shows where the parking is underneath, right around the park, but this area will support this weight. I think that's one of the first things most people want to know. We had that problem with the La Brea sculpture because there wasn't solid ground under it.
Right.
Okay, anyone else? Mara or Mara?
Hi, thank you so much for this very thoughtful proposal and plan. It's really wonderful. I have a couple questions. One is, and I'm sorry if I maybe just was unclear, but I'd love to hear more about the lighting. And I know that you do a lot of work with light, but also that that you also don't, sort of make these like sort of monoliths as well. And that was your early public art practice. But I'm also very interested in thinking about light. So I'm interested in the lighting that you're planning, and maybe we're not there yet. But I'm also wondering about how you're specifically going to position it. And I'm wondering if you've done any like light studies on that area, because I know that a lot of architects do that in sort of designing, and I know, so that's one question. Another is, I'm curious about how you envision this sculpture being integrated into the landscaping. And I'm actually also wondering, because I really like your point about how this is about connection and touching, but this is the curator and the interpretation of me. Your work is very like pure and has a kind of minimalism and like a kind of monolithic kind of quality, which is very powerful, but is also, I think, it doesn't always feel organic. And so I'm wondering if you're open to the idea of, over the years, like maybe the artwork, it seems like it could lend itself to some engagement with like natural materials, plantings, things like that, that might sort of grow onto it and be trimmed back. And so anyway, these are just some thoughts and things I'm thinking about. And, of course, we don't know the park itself. We don't know what it's going to look like. But I guess as I'm very supportive of this project, but I would also love to see, as we're thinking about what a monument is, there's a kind of static, and this isn't specifically for you, Philip, but rather sort of broader statement about an encouraging, our commission to think a little bit differently about how we think about monuments. Maybe there's a potential to change lighting over time, to do things, to project things, to use the monument, this sculpture to do other things and to sort of activate it in different ways. Because I think what we've seen in the collection that we have in the city is that a lot of times the work almost starts to disappear if it's not continually engaged with in an active way. And so these are just a few thoughts I've had, 3 thoughts I've had, but generally I'm very supportive of it, and I'm excited for the possibilities of seeing how this work lives in the city.
Okay, great. I love it. Good questions. I've got 4 topics, not 3. But I'm gonna pick up the last one first, which is a general statement about memorials. I think the challenging thing about memorials is, I think that the number one challenge is for them to remain timeless. Because so often a memorial is a marker of a time or a moment that maybe 50 to 100 years from now doesn't have the same kind of depth or immediacy that it once did. So it's funny, I'll just say that I think first and foremost, my goal is that this work, no matter who's walking by, that whether they know it's the AIDS memorial or not, that it is immediately a timeless, beautiful object that desires to be engaged with. And that through that engagement, there's a learning process about what it is. And the fact that all of the, let's say, the information and the facts, which is probably the most difficult part of the timeless factor, all of that is reserved to be online, meaning it can always be updated and always revisited and always changed. So I love the dynamic. I actually feel that this is somewhat of a new idea, that there is a distinct kind of physical object that can exist on its own, be beautiful, but then through education, understand that these marks, these lines, these fins, this texture has meaning. But then the digital is able to support the actual logistics and information. So I think that's fascinating. I'm going to go back to the beginning and talk a little bit about lighting. I mean, I consider myself to be a light-based artist. My medium is light, but you don't go down to the art store and buy light. So you need to evoke a quality of light through the choice of materials, through surface, through various sheens or glosses, whatever it may be. So I've kind of always had a logic in all of my work that there's an experience that happens during the day and something that happens at night. And that if you visit the piece in the morning, it's different when you come back at noon, different when you come back at dusk, and different when you come back in the evening. Because that, I think, supports a kind of engagement with the work. The sighting of that is very important because I'm not creating a work that has internal LEDs that's glowing and that's, you know, luminescent from within. To be frank, those are difficult pieces to be outdoors 24/7 and able to hold up. So the idea of this being stone was very important there. But I really love the thought of the canopy of the palm trees interacting with that surface. And I think really speaks to the organic quality that you were talking about, Maura, that while there is this kind of purity to the form and this kind of crisp and sort of monolithic quality, that the light and shadow of that surface that changes as a result of the movement of the sun on the artwork itself, but then also how the shadowing of the palm fronds and the landscaping are going to drape across that surface and create a new surface. That for me is the exciting part. That's why I really like that this work is trying to be pushed towards the center of the park. So, you know, I don't necessarily think that it's a good idea for landscaping to be pushed right up next to it or to grow up onto it. But actually, I would say that the landscaping is able to be draped across it through light and shadow, which I think that is even more dynamic and still allows a kind of freedom of movement movement around. So I think I've answered all your questions.
Yeah, thank you, Philip. That's a very thoughtful answer. And I hope, because the next step of this will be for you to make a presentation to the City Council, I hope that they'll be able to also spend enough time with this to understand, you know, what went into it. Do any other commissioners have questions? Yes, Tracy.
Hi, Philip. Thank you so much. I love the monumentality of it, but it seems like it will be so intimate too. So I love that that play. And as a working as a garden aficionado, the idea of engaging with light, with plants, and lights and shadows in that respect, I think that's an exciting way of thinking of the placement of the piece and how it becomes part of the park throughout its whole design, which is something we've talked a lot about in the past few years. Some of the art that's placed in the city the placement of it wasn't really well thought out. So from a functional mechanical point of view with maintenance and with just an aesthetic point of view. So I think that's awesome. Do you think you could send us this proposal? Because we have a much shortened one to all the commissioners. That would be great. Of your people.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dan's got all of that, so he can probably send it as we're talking here to Ann and company.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Questions that have arisen from other projects that we've talked about. So one thing, I know that everybody's proposing this as a gift to the city, and one thing we've talked about is to create kind of a process to accept gifts of art, that we'd like to have a plan for their maintenance and something like a thought of endowing something for that, or, you know, have the city realize that we need to endow a certain amount of money for maintenance. So we're not running up to any issues with that. So I think this could be like a model for that idea of, you know, we've accepted a lot of art in the past, and we're having a hard time tracking down if there was, you know, one thing as an endowment, most thing doesn't. And then we have a large maintenance work we're going through now over the past few years to try to catch up with what has happened in a long time. So I think when you're making that presentation, just if you future maintenance with the city council, I think that would be really welcomed also.
Sure.
Perfect.
Think about
And I
early.
wanted to read you from the statute what it says we're supposed to do. The proposed donation will be considered at a monthly public meeting of the Public Arts Commission. All details of the proposed donation, including the feasibility and expense of placing and caring for the work, will be considered. Then we're to review it and to inform the city council that we have approved it. And I think in this case, I think we might be ready for a motion that says we enthusiastically approve this and request that the city council accept this donation and include the Arts Commission in questions of the installation and care of the monument.
Yeah,
Because we've sort of gotten.
yeah, it would be great to have it like as a complete package done right from the beginning.
Right.
Understood, totally makes sense. And I know that Dan can also talk a little bit that, that the task force is partnered with DAP and is working under their umbrella for the fundraising of this. And I know that that's been part of our conversations and that is our intent. Dan, if I'm speaking out of turn, let me know. But I think that the intent is to do just what you're talking about, is to provide this kind of total package so that this isn't a one-time thing. It's about how does this maintain this beauty in the future as well.
Awesome.
Well, and also, but we feel strongly, and it says somewhere in the ordinance also, that we are responsible for the upkeep of all the public art in the city. And we're trying to figure out this ordinance was created in 1988. So after about 35 years, we really don't have a good sense of exactly which art belongs to the city and what maintenance it needs. So we have two people working on that at the moment, Alicia Thomas and Arlene Amick. And these are projects that were not able to be done in this fiscal year, and we'll just continue until we actually can say what we own and that everything's been maintained properly. Yeah.
Question.
Thank you.
Are there conditions for display of this gift? So for example, if in 20 years someone says, we'd like to move this, does that negate or change the terms of the gift? Once it's gifted, can we, yes, it will be cited in this place, but I'm just wondering if there are any conditions around it.
I mean, I would only speak to that through what's in a typical public art contract, right? I mean, whether it's a gift or not, there's always a concern that in the future, the artwork may need to be moved, whatever the reason is. There's a safety, a safety factor and need to be removed. The other is that something about the site has changed and that the work doesn't make sense there anymore. For a typical public art contract, that basically lays out saying that, that the city will work with the artist to find a new location if that is determined to be necessary. And that if for some reason, the artist doesn't like where it's going to end up and we can't come to agreement, then the artist says, I don't want to be involved, or I don't want to say that my name is associated with the work. Those are, as all contracts do, have to think about the worst case scenarios and what happens if things go sideways. But I'm just sort of speaking about it through what's in a typical public art contract, which I'm not sure how that might be able to work here, but I'm sure we could work something out.
I'm sure the city attorney will have something to say about it. However, there is federal law that requires that if a work of public art is to be altered or removed, that the first decision needs to go to the artist. And for example, if they would like to take it back rather than have it moved, that's an option. And that's all federal law, regardless of what the city may say. So, there are a lot of cases where there's a mural on a building that gets sold and the new owner doesn't want the mural. Murals are a little harder to save, but the artist does need to be consulted. So I think that would be part of the contract.
Yeah, and that's good practice and that's good relationships. But I recall that we've had some problems with moving some artworks in the past to try to make way for some other things. And it's just, I'm just for, this is the thing with monumental sculpture is that I'm just bringing up this question because the idea is that this is entering the collection. And I just think it's something, we should be aware of. But yes, good practice is to consult with the artist and or his estate, her estate.
And this is clearly going to be a more complicated contract than most of ours. So we will need probably some people like Mara with museum experience to also talk about what best practices are. Anyone else?
Yes, Philip, I wasn't able to tell by the rendering, the circumference of the center hole, like how big is that and how tall is that off the ground?
Sure, it's actually the entire piece is about 9 feet. So the center of that circle is at 4'6". So that it's not that the center is sort of right there, but it's let's say for all heights and ages. But the opening right now, I think it's right at about 20 inches or so.
Okay.
So you're saying no one will get stuck in it?
Well, yeah, I was.
If you're looking at worst case.
I mean, my first initial thought was like, take a picture from me, the daisy side with my head through it. That was like my first initial reaction. Mm-hmm. But I was just trying to make sure that someone's head or body couldn't get stuck inside of that hole in any way, or if they're able to climb up it.
I mean, it's always a challenge, right? If anybody will climb anything. I did massive, totally mirrored volumes at Coachella, and somebody ran up and did a backflip off of it. So I anticipated that those things may happen because that's what happens when art is out in the public. You don't have control over it. So you do need to think about those things. I think it's a good comment. It's something we can look at. I'll say that the artwork I'll say right now is probably, like right at 90%. We're doing small tweaks here and there about what surface is polished, which is not, some of the dimensions of that light and shadow surface. And I'll just look at even the architectural code about dimensioning for that. I think when it gets into that kind of width, they're not so concerned about bodies. They're usually concerned about heads and fencing and that kind of, and small children, right? With the general understanding that adults should know better, but we know how that goes.
Well, I will never forget the first, like 3 years ago when we were discussing a piece of art in a park and talking about keeping children off. And Mara informed us that the trick is to plant cactuses all around it. And then no one will climb on it.
And the other
so you might consider that.
Was with the lighting, with those polished surfaces. Is there any way to look into maybe doing a projection, like doing an event where we can project the names onto the sculpture as a commemorative event, something along those lines? So with that surface, would we be able to project onto it?
I'm not entirely sure about that, Shonda. I think just because for a projected surface, right, if there's a lot of undulation in it, depending on perspective, you might get sort of strange gaps and lines don't kind of match up. If we're dealing with a big, flat surface out in the public, I mean, it might be more appropriate, let's say, to project onto the face of the parking garage where they've got the kind of strata concrete piece, which is directly adjacent to this. So I think there's probably a logic of using other areas in the park that are nearby for something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And if I might, I'd like to suggest, if it's possible, perhaps tomorrow I have an offline meeting with the artist to talk about the siting of it in the park, because where where I think I saw it located is actually a sloped lawn area for seating around about 10 palm trees.
Okay.
They're going to have their ring LED lights on them. And
Okay.
it's a mounded area, so it wasn't really intended for an art exhibit. I mean, where we had intended public art, as you know, was the wide sidewalk area along the east side of the park, which is still available for
I think-
a number of art installations. But
I think you have one more day,
integrated
Philip,
into the
to
park, I'll have
one
to.
more day to work with Marcus, and I think it's very worthwhile. It would be nice if by the time this went to the city council, we knew the answers to all these
Agreed.
questions.
I'll say too that that we presented yesterday to Jeff Kors and also to the new city manager. And we were talking, you know, at the end of the meeting about a lot of the timing and the logistics associated and ensuring that those conversations about siting can happen much sooner than later so that we're not having to rip anything out to put this in. You know, there's some basic logistics like let's get conduit in while it's dirt. Let's get a footing in while it's dirt and figure things out. We also, you know, acknowledge that we're coming to you with that one X marks the spot on the downtown site plan. But I haven't yet walked the park myself. And I think that it'd be good to have a conversation also with Rios, who, you know, is the creator of this park, the designer of the park. And I know Nate Cormier from Rios. I'm also working with them, have been working with them for the last 5 years on a project in West Hollywood. So I would like to be able to talk with them to see what they're thinking, but also to have the city integration in that so that we're finding a site that may be even much better than what we've placed right now.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
I
I think that, yeah.
one more quick question. The data, the web, you know, the online content that's going to activate this piece remotely, if it ends up being a gift to the city, is that something, is the online content going to be like with a national organization, or is it something that we with your group that's putting the memorial together, we would add content to, or how would that work?
Yeah.
At this time, I would say that we can add a lot of content. And so if there are specifics, I was just thinking about Philip's presentation just now, and it would be so easy to have a video that you access and have him describe exactly what he described today, and be able to inform a lot of thinking around the memorial. There's a lot of other ways we can engage that. Or if there's even a link to where there are other art pieces in the city. So you could access the Arts Commission map for where all the different art pieces are in the city. So there's a lot of capacity to link things that are important to the city as well as to the memorial, and then connecting kind of nationally.
I think Tracy may have been asking who's responsible, for example, for the names. Is this, is DAP Health going to do it, or because your committee will disband? So presumably there's a group, somebody will be responsible for new names being added or memorials of some sort. You don't have to tell us now, but that's clearly.
Yeah, to like think about who's going to curate that content, and if the content is going to not stay static, if it's going to change with the times, who would be responsible for like continuing to curate the piece? Would it be the city? Would it be, you know, would it be Philip? Would it be your committee, or is it like a national AIDS organization where a lot of this content already lives, right?
Just something to think about, I guess. All right. I think that we should ask Tom Yanni as his last chance to make a motion to put into words that we would like to accept this donation and would recommend to the city council that they allow it to be sited in the park.
I will do that. Thank you. I also just wanted to add my voice to the other commissioners saying I really appreciate what you came up with, Philip, and I really like the idea of the tactile quality to it for some, that just like you said, people touch public art anyway, but people, you know, this when you're actually designing it to be touched, which is kind of nice, and it's not just climbed on. And so I hope it works out well going forward. So I would like to make a motion that the Arts Commission recommend this piece be cited in the new downtown park, and that the city council go forward with approving it and recommending this piece.
And accepting it as a donation.
And accepting it as a donation, yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, I think we should take a roll call. Jay? I think we should take a roll call, just because it's a big event.
Commissioner Gladstone,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni, maker of.
Yeah. Yes.
Commissioner Pritchard, second the motion.
Yes.
Vice Chair Merrigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Favreau,
Yes.
Chair Sheffer.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
so
for
much, guys. Thank you. I really appreciate
spending
the
this
comments
time,
and the support.
and we look forward to helping with the next stages. But I'm glad
Thank you,
you've
guys.
officially done it. That's our last really official thing. All right, we don't want to take too much longer here with some of these smaller items. So let me say for item H, this was simply meant to be sort of an update on which pieces were ready to go to the city council. And if you start at the bottom at item 5, Cindy is working on simply extending the time that both Alicia and Arlene need to finish the contract that they're working under. It's not changing the scope at all, but it's just taking longer than it seemed to get through this. She is writing staff reports on extending the contracts for Sarah, Madalena, and Tyson, and hopefully in time to go to the council meeting on the 24th. The engineering assessment, she needs a little more information, Mara, in order to get it on the council agenda. And the 2 loans of Desert X installations have contracts that have not been negotiated yet. And so we need to go on record as urging the city and the city attorney to do that. We can't write the contracts, but we would like to have that happen. Desert X ended on what, May 14th? And the pieces are on city property, so somebody has to do something to extend the lease. And I don't know if
and the artists are very eager to continue the loans, and so I'll just make sure that you have that contact information, but they're very eager to continue the loans and continue doing community engagement. So for example, the Sturgis project over at James O'Jesse, the center has asked to continue to do a workshop, a mask workshop, with the artists and some of the students this summer. So there's interest from the community and from the artists to continue the loan for at least on a temporary basis for another 6 months to a year. So.
Okay, so the main thing is, and perhaps Jay can do this, to just convey to the council that we have voted to go forward with these loans and have agreed to pay the amounts that are listed in here. So as much as we can do, we would like to keep them. We're willing to pay to have them deinstalled at the end. There's not much more we can do. Other than that, there were 3 items pulled from the May 27th council consent agenda, which we really haven't come up with any more argument for why they should be done than we had on the 27th. So I think I'm open to about this, but it seems like not worth just putting them back on an agenda without some more rationale or backup information or whatever.
Could you tell us what those pieces were?
There were a project that 2 projects that Russell had proposed. One was windows on the Skylark Hotel, the front side having already been done. This was to do the ones on the Palm Canyon side. The second was to paint K-rails at Hunters, which are being used for outdoor dining. And the third, which is unfortunate that it doesn't go through, was the window decals that Tracy had been working on with Angel View and 2 other storefronts. And unfortunately, the comment from one of the city council members was, I don't think we should be doing temporary anything. And secondly, one of the council members asked the city attorney if painting on private property was a gift of services from the city. So, and since the sort of mini grants that we were working on during COVID are really just about over, I'm not sure there's any way we can, and it's also up to the 2 commissioners who were working on this, but it doesn't seem that putting them on the agenda again will do anything except, sort of get more questions from the city council that we can't answer during the meeting. So
we talked about it a little earlier today, and I do think we should put the window treatments on the city council agenda in July. And I had asked to have it not be on the consent agenda so we can add like some backup information for them. So, because some of the questions that they asked
had answers,
validity to it, right? So they have nothing, they don't go against the sign ordinance because they aren't an advertisement, and they don't have a company name on them, and et cetera, et cetera. So we've asked we asked Angel View, and we asked the other people to give us a letter from their point of view on why they were so excited about this project. And we've done all of these projects all over the city. So now why, if you're not a painter, you're not getting the ability to do these projects because your artwork isn't like physically painting. So I don't think in that respect, it's not fair to all, a bunch of different artists.
And I like your idea though of doing it in July and trying to put together a packet that does have letters from the stores and a little bit more rationale for why doing something temporary at the request of a downtown store is very much in keeping with what we wanted to do to begin with. But I think if we don't put it on this next council agenda where we're hoping to get all the contracts extended so that we can actually keep going.
Yeah, let's get that.
No, okay. Sounds good. And Russell, you're okay with not resubmitting them?
Yes, with the Hunters and Skylark, we've mutually agreed to shelve the project.
Okay, it's a shame. And I was really taken by surprise at the reaction to it because, we've been sending the council reports on things we've been doing. And there have been a lot of things like those.
Yeah.
We've painted K-rails, we've painted windows, but that's as it may be. Okay, this brings me to a sort of an update on what's going on about the fact that 4 of us on the council's terms are expiring at the end of June. I had hoped that the interviews would take place before the last council meeting in June so that there would be new commissioners and the terms that expire on June 30th could expire. The way it works is that terms don't expire until a new commissioner has been appointed by the city council. So that likely will put us into July. There are interviews on Friday, but it's not clear when there could be another meeting of the new commission. Plus, in the whole time I've been on the commission, and Tracy and I were comparing notes, it has never met in July because the city is about to shut down for August. And so, anything that would have to go to the city council would have to wait till fall anyway. Also, I inquired about when we could elect a new chair and vice chair on the theory that it shouldn't be at the very first meeting of a commission that's got 4 new commissioners. But again, we're pushing this process as quickly as we can. So I have decided that one way to sort of assure some continuity is that I am going to resign as chair as of the end of this meeting, which will leave us with a vice chair, Tracy, who can sort of keep track of how they're doing on new commissioners, have a meeting in July if the timing works out. And in September, hopefully there will be a fully formed commission and it can elect new officers. And in fact, again, since I've been on the commission, we always had the elections in the fall in September. So try to do them before June 30th just doesn't make any sense. Actually, can't do them before July 1st. So if no one has any questions about that, I thought the best way to end this meeting for the last time that we have commissioners on.
You're breaking. Oh, you're breaking up, Anne.
I'm sorry. Okay. The best thing to do would be a nice way to end this would be to see if either the 3 continuing commissioners would like to just talk a little bit about where they see it going, and if the outgoing commissioners would like to make any sort of valedictory comment. We did put on the agenda the projects that everyone was working on. But again, I think that the fact that the city council has somewhat changed their approach to what projects need to be approved by the full council, that's going to take a little while to straighten out.
I'll make a valedictory remark.
Okay, that,
I just
you're
want
so
to
good at
thank
that.
all my fellow commissioners for the incredible hard work that they've done, particularly in this past year with these mini grants. I understand how much work it is and how much effort you put in and how much time it takes. And I just want to applaud all of you for doing that. Russell, all of the projects that I've seen that look so good. And Shonda, I just saw another electrical box today driving down San Rafael right by Indian Canyon. So that was a joy to see. And Tracy, all your work as well. And Mara, I mean, it's really something. And Al, I also appreciate everything that Al has done over these years that we've been together on the commission. And it's been a joy to meet and work with all of you. And it's been very meaningful for me personally. And I just want to let you know how much I appreciate all that you've done and how much I look forward to seeing the future work along with any future commissioners who will be joining the commission.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you
I would
very
like to
much for
say
6
also,
years.
yes, exactly. It seems hard to believe because it was a different world when we started. And I think injected a lot of energy into the commission that hadn't been there before, which reminds me that I do want to also thank the artists and who have really taken over making these projects happen, and that would be Sarah and Madalena and Tyson, and now Arlene and Alicia doing the work that it's so important and we just have never figured out how to do before. And Patrick Sheehan, who has tackled the Parks Department, but who has the perspective of having been chair of the Public Arts Commission years ago. I don't know how many years ago, but at a time when it was even harder to get things done than it is now. So, and I'm very proud of what we've done. We have paid in this last year something like 70 artists. The poster, by the way, is for sale at PS Public Arts, Destination PSP. But if you just stop in there, they'll be happy to give you one or more for yourselves. And it's a great poster. And, there's art all over town. So anyone else want to, I think we're losing, I think Tom and Tracy and I are the ones going off, and Al. So I would like to have be known for the last meeting did not go past 7 o'clock, the last meeting that I chaired. But I don't want to cut anyone off.
Oh, I have questions just to for clarity's sake, since we're wrapping this up and I didn't realize that. So I just have, like, out of the commissioner stuff that the request that was on there, have those things not been approved or been approved? Like, for instance, I'd be like Tyson doing a live painting event this weekend. Is that something that I thought was already approved, but it's on here now? So I just want to make sure that all of that is copacetic. There's a couple of projects that I want to make sure before we wrap this up that I'm not like, that have been approved that I'm not sure.
Does anybody have a copy of what the 7 projects were? Yeah. And maybe just, yeah. Do you have that?
So the 7 projects that went to council, and this would have been at the May 27th meeting.
Right.
As you guys have already discussed, 3 of them were not approved. The 3 that were not approved was the Skylark Hotel, the Hunters K-Rail project, and the window stickers. The 4 that were approved were the Tuskegee Airmen Tribute Project, which I understand has already been completed. The Garden Dome at Demuth Park, that was approved. Okay. The utility box QR code stickers project, that was approved, with the caveat that the QR code includes a link to the city website and not just the Public Arts Commission website. And finally, the last one that they approved was the utility box painting project at JOJ, which I believe is what Shonda, you're referring to, that Tyson's doing. So that was approved.
Okay, good deal. Just wanted to get that stamp to make sure before, I'm not running amok in the city.
Right, right. And then make sure that Sarah knows, when it's done and can send in an invoice for him.
Good deal.
Anyone else?
Oh, I think Mara's texting on the chat.
I'm so sorry. I need to depart early. I apologize. I have a family obligation, but thank you so much for everything. And I will follow up with Cindy and Jay about some of those contacts so I can give you all the information I have so we can move those remaining things forward.
Great. And thank you for your service, Commissioner Gladstone.
And thank you, Cindy, for getting drafted into being our savior here. I don't think it's in your job description, but it really helped, especially with the transition in city managers, to have someone who knew what we were doing. And thank you, Jay, for being very long-suffering. And, I know I don't think we're as much trouble as some commissions, but I think we create a lot of activity, probably more than most. All right. Well, good night, and thank you all again. And we will to the people who are staying, you can always call on the rest of us. We're not going anywhere. We just gonna turn over the reins to you guys. Okay. Thank you. All right. Bye.
Motion to.
Oh, a motion, Tom, quick.
I want to put my 2 cents.
Oh, okay.
And I want to really thank you and for your leadership and your soldiering on these past 3 years. It's been really exciting. We've done amazing work, and your dedication and love of art has been infectious to the entire town. So I really thank you for all of this leadership. And like we talked today, so it's not the end. We're all going to be around each other, which will be so great. And Tom, you are amazing, and you have such an amazing heart and such a bright outlook. So I thank you so much for the work that you've done over these past years. And I really love that we've gotten to know one another, although none of us have been able to see each other all year. And then I thank Mara and Al as well. So we've had a really great group. So hopefully next year we'll go on to lots of interesting things. We talked this afternoon about having kind of a meeting in July that will be, a work, kind of like a work study session.
A study session, just for people to meet each other.
Yeah, like all of us can meet each other and talk about what we want to do for the year. So that would be exciting. We can do it with our entire group. So thank you so much, Anne.
Okay, are we good? Okay, Tom, this is your cue. Take us out, as they say. Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your service to the city.
Thank you. And thank you, Patrick, for your kind words on the chat. I guess I'll go ahead and make a motion to adjourn our meeting to our next regular meeting on Wednesday, July 21st at 5:30 p.m. Maybe in person, maybe by teleconference.
I don't know. I think we should do to a date uncertain, because seriously, we have never met in July, and it's easier than canceling it, because that takes a whole other notice. And something like a study session or a special meeting could be done without having put it in this adjournment. Okay, then all in favor of adjourning?
Do you want a second?
Yes. Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. Too.
Happy Juneteenth.
Oh, yeah, it's a national holiday now.
Fingers crossed.
Going to be.